Hello and welcome to Today on the Homestead. Today we're going to go around the place and start checking out some of the beds we've been preparing for gardening season and let you check out what we've been working on. First thing we're going to talk about is our journey from putting seeds in the ground 3 years ago to where we're at right now. We were beginners at gardening and didn't know anything about what we were doing, so we started reading and researching and listening and checking out other people's gardens and learning as much as we could. And the first thing that we noticed is that soil is by far the most important thing you need to have great nutrient-dense fruits and vegetables. You can have fruits and vegetables, but unless you're eating nutrient-dense food, that's the whole point behind trying to improve your own health. And if you're doing things like spraying herbicide all over your property just to get a hold of the weed control, remember that most of the herbicides, especially your glyphosate or any of your broad spectrum chelators bind onto minerals and basically make them bio-unavailable for some of them up to 20 years. And research is in its fairly primitive and only knows of a few soil microorganisms that are able to break down that wall to make those minerals available to nature again. The second thing that most of them were used for is an antibiotic. So not only is it making the minerals that you want in your food unavailable to the plants, it's also killing the bacteria in the soil that is able to break down things like wood chips to improve the viable parts of your soil. And if you are able to just look around at different people's health today compared to our pictures of our family ancestors from years ago, it's evident that something's happening, something's different, and I want to know what that is. And I think a large part of it has to do with nutrient deficient foods. That's the whole point behind growing your own fruits and vegetables, and it's so much fun. Once you get your hands on the soil, you'll never go back. You'll continue to want to grow more and more and more every year and do more things with your family and your kids, and it's just the greatest thing you could ever start doing is growing your own food. If you haven't been growing your own food, hopefully this video motivates you to start trying. I wish I could have made a video about how sad our garden was 3 years ago, just so that if you start something and it doesn't work, then what great news do you have of how much you have yet to learn. That's a great sign. I hope none of you get discouraged if you've never done it before and you want to try it. I'd encourage you to, even if it's just a few herbs in pots in your window, or you get a small fruit tree for your backyard, or maybe you start off with a couple plants in a raised bed in your backyard. It doesn't matter. Just start with something and go from there. And we're going to give you some ideas hopefully on where to acquire some really good soil if you don't have any right now. I definitely wouldn't encourage you to go buy it by the bag at Walmart. Go find it. Go talk to your local farmer. Go talk to a great gardener in your neighborhood. Hopefully this activity gets people, neighbors back to being neighbors, where the only reason you used to lock your car in town was because you were worried that somebody might load it down with zucchini and watermelon and different squash and stuff. Not because you were worried somebody was going to steal something, because you were worried that somebody was going to gift you with the abundance that they had. We need to get back to that. And hopefully from now on, every Tuesday, we're going to go through a new segment that basically shows our journey in the process, I guess. And we certainly don't have everything figured out, but we're trying and we're gaining and we're researching and we're listening and we're reading. So if you're ahead of the game, tell us what you're doing. And if you haven't started yet, but you're motivated and you have questions, then ask questions. That's what this is all about. So anyway, hope you enjoy it. We're going to get started, and here we're headed to the orchard. Obviously, as you can see, we've been working pretty hard at hauling in some decomposed wood chips and fresh wood chips here in the front yard, and this is where some of our fruit trees are going to go in. Last year at this time, well, later in the summer, we ran chickens on this spot, laying birds, for probably a good 2 months, real hard. So we got a good layer of chicken manure and fertilizer down on the ground under this. And we're gonna put another layer on the top. It's kind of like work itself in with the spring rains coming, and then we're gonna top dress it with some fresh chips to kind of hold in the moisture for the summer. And hopefully that's gonna give us a lot better results for holding moisture on. the way this happened was our goats completely destroyed all of our fruit trees. And I noticed some things when I pulled the root masses out of the ground. They literally hadn't gone anywhere just due to the extremely rocky soil, a lot of clay, and I just knew that nothing was really going to produce if we didn't do something. So we brought in all of this really nice, rich, dark black soil, and we're really excited to see what happens. And we've done the same thing in the garden. I'm going to take you through a bunch of the different kinds of wood chips we got around here. You can get all these at your local city dump or limb dump or wherever they do wood chips, or call any of the power line clearing places and have them dump it at your place. It works awesome. So check this out. Right here you can see, you know, good soil isn't going to compact, okay? It won't pack. It keeps the oxygen in the soil, it doesn't pack down, it'll take on moisture when it rains. All you can see is that's old wood chips and leaves. The nice thing about wood chips too to think about is there is no weed seeds in trees. You know, there will be a few that blow in with the wind, but for the most part your weed control is going to be a lot less. The only thing you have to think about is, you know, if you're going to till your wood chips in, you are going to tie up your nitrogen in the soil, so that is one thing to think about. The thing that made me a believer about having great soil in your garden, which we did not our first year and even part of the second year, is right down the road my brother-in-law's garden was amazing, and he worked really hard the first couple of years to get his soil up and get all the nutrients and minerals needed to grow great plants, and you can definitely tell the difference. So the first things first is you've got to have great soil, and it has to retain minerals and it has to retain water. The water just can't hit the ground and run off. It's got to stick in. The best way to do that is having wood chips as a part of your soil. Now, this is our garden, and we ran our meat laying birds on this last year before we put the top dress of chips down, and they loaded this up with tons of phosphorus and potassium and nitrogen, lots of nitrogen, and we wanted to give it the winter to kind of chill out a little bit so that it just didn't burn everything up. That's one thing you kind of have to be careful with chicken manure, is if you put it on in the wrong time of the year and it doesn't get some rain right away, it can really burn things up. So it's very potent. Okay, so this is a batch of fresh chips. You stick your hand in there and it's still pretty warm. These are just starting to break down. This is what we're going to top dress everything with once we get plants that have broken the topsoil. And these are going to hold the most amount of moisture, keeping that subsoil temperature a lot lower when it gets hot during the summer. I believe these are like looks like ground up cedar trees, so some juniper. It looks like actually a little bit of hedge in there too. So that is one thing you do kind of have to watch, is what wood chips you are using. I know one of the benefits of using cedar is a lot of the insects and pests that you get do not like the aroma that the cedar puts off, so that is one positive of it, but there are some negatives too, just with anything, so just kind of keep an eye on it. This is some older stuff. This is what we put in the bottom of the raised beds in the garden. This stuff has been there quite a while. This is broken down a lot further. This pile here was steaming pretty good when I took it out of the pile. This here is much thicker. This is the stuff I'll put in the cattle lot, around the bale feeders and such, and when they're eating their hay, they'll be pooping and peeing everywhere, and loading these chips up with all kinds of different nutrients and stuff. So all the sizes of chips kind of have their own purpose. The last thing that we did once we got the chickens off and got the top dress of wood chips back on was we put some wood ash on from our wood furnace, and basically that is adding all of our minerals and micronutrients back to the soil. Your wood ash is your best source for adding your minerals back in if you're thinking that your soil may be depleted of nutrients. Anytime you can get a hold of that, if you want to know where some great sources are, you can go down any county road here in Wilson County, and the county's done a great job of cleaning up our roadsides and burning up all the brush piles. You can go load some up in a 5-gallon bucket, or go talk to any of the local farmers that burn here in the spring. I'm sure they'll have plenty of wood ash around that you can go and spread on your garden, or anybody that burns wood in the wintertime. So next Tuesday we'll be talking about getting our starts going, and some grow lights, and getting your seeds ordered, and possibly getting maybe even a little small greenhouse built. We're gonna transform our chicken tractor that we had chickens in and turn it into a greenhouse, and show you how to do that. So hope you guys are digging this, and if you're kind of starting to get curious about it, start thinking about it. Start checking out some videos on YouTube. If you research the Back to Eden method, which is kind of what inspired us to do this, Paul Gotchi's got some awesome information on this, so check his stuff out, and we'll be back next Tuesday, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.